given you being on the, the real estate side of things, typically your position is kind of my feet on the ground, really. Mm-hmm. You do quite a bit of driving, I'm assuming?
I do.
What areas do you cover?
York and Cumberland County primarily.
Okay.
Although I've been doing a lot more in the Lewiston area because it's affordable.
Okay. Just given kind of your background of expertise, the thing that sticks out to me is you kind of have a bit of a strategy with what you do. You have a niche that you're kind of targeting currently.
Yes.
Okay.
So I got into real estate. I didn't want to limit myself, so I help buyers, sellers, and I do a lot of new construction. So a lot of the new construction has led me into my niche of renovations. And so I've had clients who have asked me, can you come look at my house? What do I need to do to get it ready for the market? And that works in two ways. So we can invest money to maximize your return of investment, or we can just make it shine as it is.
Okay.
And so if we're shining it as it is, we clean, declutter, and paint. Works marvelously. Or we can actually, like I have a house in Portland where we're renovating the bathroom, and they're going to make more than they're putting in for the renovation, and kind of makes their house a lot more appealing. And so from that, I've just had more and more people sort of say to me, hey, can you help me build a garage with an apartment, or finish the basement, or add an entire living room? And so those are sort of some of the projects that I'm doing with the whole renovation and new construction piece.
Wow. It sounds like you have a lot of resources to pull from.
I do, and that's because of my construction background. It's allowed me to have relationships with contractors.
Okay.
And contractors can be hard to find, or there's long waits. So in working with them on a regular basis, it allows us just to sort of have them in my back pocket and use them for some of the smaller jobs.
Yeah. Do you find, because you said you do new build construction as well, are some of these contractors financing the build themselves, allowing the consumer to do like a traditional mortgage at the end of the day, as opposed to financing the full construction project from the consumer standpoint? Because I know that doing it from like with the consumer financing the whole project, aka the lenders financing the whole project, there can be a lot more hoops to jump through from the contractor's side.
Yeah, so pre-COVID, we had a handful of those who would do turnkey packages and were financing the projects. We're seeing more construction loans now.
It's tough. A lot of people want to build right now, and it makes sense because it's like if you're going to be purchasing in a inflated market like we're in right now, it's almost worth buying something that's going to be perfect for you, right?
Exactly.
And that's what a lot of my clients anyways go into thinking. And then we go over the cost package and everything, and it's like, geez, if you really don't have a builder that's selling a lot with pretty much the full builder package included, it can be pretty intense. It can be pretty intense. Do you have anything to add to that as far as builders like selling their own lots, or from a consumer that's going into a construction project?
So building is a great way to alleviate the supply issue. The problem is it's really costly.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you have the land. And so land is harder to find. Depending on where you are and what market and what town, houses range anywhere from, I want to say, $475 and up.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes without the cost of land.
Right.
So I wish it were more affordable. However, like what you just said, if you're going to be there, it makes more sense to invest now and create exactly what you want.
Right.
Also, because inventory is so low, people are still overbidding. Values are going through the roof. So I know it can be a long and arduous process, but it's definitely can be worth it in the long run.
Yeah. And given the housing shortage too, are you seeing a positive trend now with more people wanting to build?
We are, if they can afford it.
Yeah.
Or if they already have the land.
Okay.
So it's sort of finding the right lot in the right place. Every town has different zonings. So I have one lady who wants to build a house with an accessory dwelling unit, so it doesn't quite count as a 2-unit. But then you got to be in the right town that allows it, and so yeah.
The ADUs, as we call it, the accessory dwelling units, are kind of a new thing now with especially with FHA, where they're counting that as almost rental income, just kind of like a side unit. My biggest question is when it comes to the appraiser going in and doing comps on that, have you found that to be difficult from the appraiser standpoint to kind of compensate for the rental income of that ADU?
Not if the ADU is an actual above ground unit. It becomes an issue when they try to do it in a basement. You're not getting the value for the below grade.
Gotcha. Okay.
You probably get 20% of what you actually put in. So when we can, we try to have it as an addition.
Okay. And then it sounds like with your resources, this may be a situation where you'd actually be able to finance, or not finance, but help with the build of that ADU.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
Okay. Wow. I think that's an incredible value right there.
And if you already have a house and you're zoned where we can add an ADU, I can help you with that.
Right. Okay. So just to clarify for that, one of the benefits with having an ADU is single-family homes, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, can be incredibly difficult to finance. Numerous times I've had clients come to me, they want to do a single-family home, and we end up doing a duplex because of that additional income on the loan from that neighboring unit. So an ADU may be an alternative solution where maybe you don't want to manage your property. Maybe you'd rather kind of have it be more laid back. You get your single family home, and then this ADU is your answer for the next 3-4 years.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. So you're a solo agent.
Yes.
You have these resources that you've built through your career. Exactly how long have you been doing this?
6 years.
6 years. I always like to ask this. What were you doing before, and what kind of led you into what you do now?
So I was originally a event manager, and so I've planned every event under the sun, from golf tournaments, auctions, wine events, 1,000-person corporate galas, thousands of weddings. And I sort of had enough. I had done that for 10 years. I was ready for a change. I went back into the nonprofit world, and I was a development director for a nonprofit for 5 years, which I love, and I love helping community, but development work was also still a lot of events. And so I was like, I'm ready for something else.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend who was a realtor. She did the events at Maine Magazine. I called her up. Do you love it, hate it, regrets? And she was like, it's the best thing I ever did. We have a conference in Boston. Why don't you come as my guest? And I went, and I haven't looked back, and it's been great.
I like that.
Yeah.
So kind of since the beginning, even when you were the event planner, you were kind of like your own boss. You were kind of making all your decisions, strategizing every single day.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's the number one thing that sticks with me too about this business is before this, I had kind of a cushy W-2 paying job, and that was all great. I didn't have to worry about a whole lot, but it was so repetitive. And every morning I knew exactly what I was going to be doing. And after a year or 2 years, it starts to weigh on you. Especially when, you start to get older and you're like, okay, do I want this to be my life type of thing? At a certain point, it can't just be about the money. It has to be something that's exciting.
Exactly.
And with what we do, every day is exciting, isn't it?
And no 2 days are the same.
Exactly. No 2 days are the same. What are your weekends like? Are you working weekends now, or?
I do, although I feel like I have a fair amount of flexibility.
Yeah.
But, if a client needs me, then I'm there. My big thing is I treat people the way I would want to be treated. And this market's competitive, so a house that's on the market today might not be tomorrow.
Right.
So, yeah, sometimes I do. But for the most part, it's worked out quite well.
Yeah. That's good to hear. So you do construction, and then you do also a niche with nursing homes as well.
Yeah, so that sort of evolved. I had a friend who, her mom had a stroke, and she needed elder care placement services. And my friend was so stressed out. She didn't know what to do, where to turn. It was kind of a quick thing. She needed help selling her mom's home. So I helped her with that. And then like a year later, I had a colleague who reached out to me and said, I'd like you to be a part of my VP of Transitions. I help place family members into senior care that's based on whatever they need. We pack up their existing home, send whatever needs to go wherever to the kids or storage or donated, and we set up their new facility. And then I sell their home. And I was like, there's such a huge need for this because of what my friend went through. And it can be a lot to navigate the whole healthcare system.
Oh my gosh, I could only imagine.
We literally come in and we do it all. And at first I was like, oh no, we had a client who went from assisted living, so he had his own apartment, into memory care. And I was like, he's going to feel like he's losing freedoms. And so we went in. He was a musician. We set up a music corner for him. He had lovely artwork. We set up the artwork in his new facility. He was so happy. It was like such a great thing. You know you're doing good work. And then the kids are like, thank you, because I'm working or I'm out of state and I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So literally we do A to Z, from moving them from current home to new facility, sell the home, and whatever they need in between. Maybe there's an estate sale piece that needs to happen. Maybe they need elder law, because we got to maybe now do a power of attorney. That's
a whole nother can of worms.
Whole nother. So we sort of help you with whatever component you might need.
Okay. I almost feel like that area is probably not as competitive as others, because that is a whole other specialty you're talking about right there.
It is. And the thing is there's a need, but a lot of people don't know we're here. And Maine has a huge aging population. So it's also one of those things that you might not need today, but maybe Graham's memory loss is all of a sudden declining, and you're like, I need to call Kelly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sort of an interesting, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting and neat.
Yeah. It's also one of those situations in life too, where there's so many components to like what you just listed, where a lot of people just push it off to the very end, and all these very important decisions need to be made. Me personally, I experienced that when I was very young, where my grandparents were getting older. They had 3 apartment buildings in Lewiston, and they also had a camp that the whole family used to go to. And my grandfather was kind of the one that was the finance guy, and he managed all of it. Well, he actually had a stroke himself and was basically incapacitated, left my grandmother with all of it. And in order to really facilitate things, we ended up having to sell everything. Sold the multi-units, the camp, everything. And they did live the next 10 years of their life in a really nice facility and all that, and that was great. That's what we wanted for them. But it really makes you think where, geez, maybe if we had planned ahead a little bit, maybe we didn't need to sell all of those assets. Maybe there was a better way to do that. So I really like what you're doing. I think you are offering tremendous value, because there's definitely not a lot of real estate agents that do specific, very difficult niches like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of that too is contributing to the partners that you have in place to help you kind of mediate that as well.
Yeah. And so Danny has an administrative background. She's the owner of Seco Senior Advisors. And so she's the one who worked in retirement communities and decided to sort of branch out. And then she had me helping her with some moves, and then she was like, I need to have you on board, and sort of just has evolved in that way.
Okay.
And so we can also do any component. So maybe someone just needs the placement services and doesn't have a home to sell. We can do that. We can do the move. Or maybe they need me to sell their house, but they're moving with mom. We can just do that piece and take care of the move. There's a lot that goes into the moves. A lot of these people have been living in those homes for years.
Yep.
So there's a lot to sort of go through and purge, and just going down in a basement can be completely overwhelming. So to sort of have an outside company come in and handle it for you can be huge.
How many facilities are you working with?
We work with any and all of them. So we base it on what the client needs.
Okay.
So someone may need only assisted living, and then we kind of look at what's currently in the market. Do they want to be in Southern Maine? Are they more in the Lewiston area? Maybe they need memory care. So we sort of base it on what they need, and then we contact the facilities. And some have openings, some don't. Some we got to do wait lists. Some we got to start in this facility with the notion that we're going to be moving them when there's an opening. So it really just depends on the family's needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then with the facility placement too, how is that financed for? Is it regarding a mortgage, or is this basically just a monthly payment?
It's a monthly payment based on their finances.
Based on their finances,
Yeah.
okay.
So sometimes they need to sell their home in order to finance it.
Yep.
Sometimes we need to do a bridge loan because maybe they had a health condition and we need to get them in the care like ASAP,
Yep.
but yet the house is a process to sell. So we may have to do a bridge loan in order to get them in there. So there's a variety of different steps.
Yeah.
Every facility has a different pay source, so it all depends on also the facility. We work with vets. Vets get a certain amount of money being a vet, so maybe that contributes some of it. So there's a lot of factors that go into the financing piece.
Yeah. Do you do like any education seminars at some of these nursing home facilities? Or
We have, and we've
Yeah.
done some like trade shows.
Yeah.
A lot of times if they're already in the facility, we're kind of behind the 8 ball. So we're trying to partner more with in-home care people, which
Okay.
is people who are working with the elder in their home because they don't need services today, but they may need assistance with, chores or meals or medication.
Mm-hmm.
And those people have their finger on the pulse in terms of if that elder is declining.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. I like how you said too, like being in the actual nursing home is almost a step behind.
Yeah.
Right. And that's key too to any business, is knowing if you are going to work to get your marketing out there to reach people, placement is key for that. So for me, one of my niche areas is that I work a lot with the immigrant community, where there's a lot of documents that need to be turned in. There's a lot of patience. There's a lot of education that needs to be had. And it's definitely a very trustworthy process. So there's a lot of one-on-one meetings too. Your typical phone call conversation may not cut it at the end of the day because there's just way too many questions. There's too much of a language barrier, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's the one-on-one, maybe it's one-on-two, and that second is the translator.
I actually do a lot with that community as well.
Yeah.
And Google Translate has helped me several times.
Google Translator, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're a big French-speaking community.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes a lot of them speak English pretty well, but
Yes,
every
they
now
do.
and then I'll get one that will need a little help so yeah, Google Translate's helped me.
Yeah. It's an incredibly underserved community too.
It is.
And what I find that's really fascinating. Well, I shouldn't be as fascinating. It makes sense. I mean, with the immigrant community, they're incredibly hard workers too.
They are.
They work a lot of hours, and they know exactly what they want. And I love to work with anyone with that type of mindset. So when I think about my marketing, same as you, placement is everything. Where are the best places to have these courses to get the best head count for people that are really serious about buying a home, whether it's a year out or 6 months from now. One course that I did, which was really eye-opening, was I went to this one room. I was going to do this whole slideshow presentation. I had it all planned. And last minute, we got rescheduled to a different room. So the second room that we went to, it did not have the screen that you could do the slideshow projector.
Oh no.
Yes. So everything I just planned, everything, I had it all planned out the window. So I pretty much just off the cuff, just started asking people questions in the room. Basically, who has an idea of what their credit score needs to be to finance their first property? Who here is a first-time home buyer? pretty much is how I started it. And the class really took itself. You know, they had so many questions, and it turned into an hour Q&A session, and it couldn't have been more beneficial to the audience, where it was like, basically, you're just articulating to your audience. I mean, what do they want to know? You know, and for 30 minutes, I must have talked about credit alone. So it's really interesting once you start talking to your audience, the potential clientele, potential partners maybe even. People just don't know about some of the very basic things regarding a mortgage or regarding estate planning. So as far as community outreach, are you doing anything like that as part of your side business?
When there's different like trade shows, or sometimes if there is a sort of conference with different nursing homes and stuff, we'll participate. So we do when we can, or when there seems to be a really good fit. Our next stage is sort of working on a whole marketing campaign for that, just to get the word out.
Yeah.
But we've even posted on Facebook and some of like the local town groups.
Yeah.
That if you need assistance with an elderly parent, like give us a call. And even if it's just a question, or you're not even sure, or what are next steps, we can help you.
Yeah.
Or at least have that conversation so you're more prepared.
Yeah, definitely. Now, back to kind of you having the partners that help you do what you do. Were these people that were kind of friends in an earlier life, and then as you kind of navigated your career, you kind of crossed paths again? Or are these people that it started with a one-on-one and kind of grew to be much more than that?
Most of them, it was sort of a business component of some sort.
Okay.
Through the construction stuff, maybe this builder did some of the stuff for the bigger builder, kind of gone off, doing their own thing. So sort of a cross paths of some sort.
Yep.
And then my colleague, we just worked together, and then just sort of crossed paths and reconnected, and she was like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, this is huge. Huge because there's such a need that is not met.
Right. And I think right now, for anyone that's in real estate too, one helping hand to being successful is diversifying yourself, your portfolio of value. And that plays a lot with partners from different backgrounds. You know, it can't just be, definitely having partners that are contractors is a huge help. But also having partners like yourself from someone that has, a play in the nursing home field, that's also key. One of the biggest things that sticks out to me when I'm deciding whether or not I want to work with somebody is if they've done a mixture of things in the past, right? I don't want to hear, as much, almost as equally important. If you came and you say, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years, I'm really good at it, and I know the ins and outs of it, that's great. But also, if you came to me and you said, hey, I've been doing this for 2 years, I work, easily more than 40 hours a week at it. I'm more than full-time, I'm all-time. This is my life. And then before this, I was managing, this company, or maybe I had my own other business. And then before that, I was doing something else. But you have a history of not only doing different things, but mastering.
Yeah, my big thing when I got into real estate is I didn't want to be one dimension. I didn't want to be just a buyer broker. Like, why limit yourself?
Yep.
So I made sure that I can help anyone and everyone, and whatever their needs may be.
Yeah. It's part of what keeps this job interesting, and just seeing how much you can take on and how much you can master, really, at the end of the day. A lot of people that are trying to start their own business know that they want to make their own path, right? They want to make their own way. They want to be able to manage their own schedule and do it on their own time. And it can take some time to really see those results, But one of the biggest things of this job is networking, putting yourself in front of people, having conversations, and kind of seeing, how do you find value in working with each other? That's the most important thing.
Consistency.
Consistency
Is
right.
Key.
Yeah.
So, like, I have clients who I've done 5 transactions with, They keep coming back for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole philosophy with real estate is it can be worked in two ways, transactionally or relationally. And transactionally is all about the numbers. What are my goals? How many people can I get in? What am I closing?
Yep.
And I don't work like that. For
Right.
me, it's relationship based. You come into my business, we become friends or family. I'm always a resource.
Right.
Even if you don't use me, I have people from networking who are like, hey, could you tell me what my house might be worth? I'm not selling it today, but I'm kind of interested. 100%.
Right.
Or like, you need a handyman? Yeah, I've got all kinds of people I can send your way.
Yeah.
So I'm just more about being a resource and a help, and sort of just, when people say to me, I don't even know who my agent was before you, like, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you hear from me probably quarterly and monthly on my newsletter. So yeah, it's all about the relationship for me.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just the dynamic of working with a referral from a past client is so much more different than just working with a brand new client. And the way that I mean that is that the whole trust building process has already been met. Mm-hmm. You've already been told, by the last client that, you're the person, you're the real estate person. If you want a house, you should talk to this person. They're not going to steer you the wrong way. They're not just going to get you into a home. They want to get you into the right home and answer all your questions along the way, type of thing. And I find that to be more easier. I find that the way I like to do business is always making sure my door is open. I like the feel of this office alone just because it doesn't feel so much like a bank, mm-hmm. right, where it's black and white. And, that stereotype is you're going to sit down across from somebody that's going to say all kinds of big words, and you're going to leave in an hour and just be like, I guess I'm doing an FHA. I don't know what else you said, but.
And I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I like to always tell clients too that, look, when they're in here, I'm going to be like, look, do you have any questions? And if not, that's okay, because this isn't going to be the only time we do this. Mm-hmm. You're welcome to come in anytime. Give me a heads up. We'll plan it. And, we can talk for 30 minutes, an hour, however long it takes in order for you to feel like you're in the right place, type of thing.
I think that's huge with the ethnic community that we serve.
Yeah.
So I do a lot, and they constantly refer back to me because they know and trust me.
Right.
And I love that population because they're so incredibly grateful. And so it's sort of like when you are in a group like that, you got to take care of them, and then they just keep taking care of you. Yeah.
They're very community driven. Mm-hmm. Yep. Very community driven. I've noticed that. And I love that. They don't want to just go with any online real estate agent or online lender.
They shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't. No, I mean, it makes sense. In this business, it's all word of mouth. We don't have a typical paycheck. We have to prove ourselves. Mm-hmm. And our reputation is really, that's all. That's our all for us. So I've found definitely a lot of really good relationships in the Burundi community alone. One of which is a handyman contractor himself. He's working to get his master license in plumbing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Keep me posted.
That's what I told him. Yeah, I was like, once you get your master's license, I'll have a lot of work coming your way.
A lot.
Yeah, and I know he's a hard worker.
100%.
Yeah. I saw it all in his financial documents. I know he works a lot. So I'm just like, yeah, man, I can't wait. And he even brought up to me too after we were closing. He's like, look, I want to buy another multi-unit in the next 2 years, but I'm planning on starting an LLC. What's the right direction? How should I handle this the right way in order to secure my next property? So I kind of guided them through, 2-year history with LLC. If you're going to steer away from W-2 income, if not, maybe hold on to that W-2 job for a little bit longer in case, your plans change. Maybe you want to buy a place in the near future. And also because I went and visited him too, after we closed as well. I've met his wife a few times. I've seen his kid. It's so much more intimate that way too. And I know his wife's story as well, even though she wasn't on the loan. She's going to school to do nursing. She wants to know basically what are her plans when she graduates and how does that qualify her for a mortgage. We didn't pull credit. We didn't have to do any of that. We just talked on the couch, for 45 minutes. And I know that family will come back,
100%.
for their next place. And I also have his contact too for future work. So those relationships are definitely long lasting.
And they're feel good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're a hardworking community. You want to help them out. Like, it's a perfect match.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. So with what you're doing now, I'm sure you have plans for the future. Do you have like a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan?
So right now I have my own team. It's Couture and Company of Getty Real Estate Services. My 3 to 5 year plan is to branch out and have my own company, which will just continue to just be Couture and Company, and sort of just go from there. Sort of how the business has evolved. It just has done it organically.
Yeah, let's turn this a little bit.
And so I want to kind of keep that organic process open
Okay.
and sort of see kind of where it goes. I don't want to limit myself, so maybe there's more renovations. Maybe elder care becomes its own whole animal. Who knows? Kind of just let it go as it needs to and sort of take care of the need that arises.
Yeah. Do you work with any fix and flips?
Yes, I don't currently have any, but the whole renovation arm works really well with that. So sometimes we watch a lot of DIY shows and people can get in over their head. And so I've got the contractors that can help with that.
Yep.
A lot of people kind of want to do it on their own, and that's cool too. And then I have investment properties for like multi-units. So I'm always looking for those.
Yeah. How did you grow up in the construction world, or?
No, not at all. So I'm born and raised in Maine, lived here my whole life, love Maine. I'd move here if I didn't live here. And just when I got my real estate license, an opportunity with a builder popped up and I partnered with them. And that's sort of how I learned the whole trade. And I was just doing construction meetings on my own and floor plans and...
Wow, what an opportunity.
Yeah, and I just sort of just kept going with it.
Good for you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something that I'm trying to gravitate towards as well. My brother-in-law, he does real estate development on the side. So whenever he has like a smaller project, like for instance, we're kind of like fixing up a cabin in Kennebunkport, I'm like, hey man, if you have any handymen working Saturdays and Sundays, let me know. I'll shoot over there and I'll try to learn as much as I can. And it's been definitely been a long road, but it's great to be able to learn that stuff and add that to your toolbox.
Yeah.
Because like you said, contractors, not only ones that are consistent, they do a really good job, they have a lot of experience. Not only are meeting those individuals really important, but also finding, if we do have to lend money for the project, finding a qualified builder is also really important. So a lot of those key aspects too, experience, how much volume, how much revenue do they bring in, all that kind of stuff matters, including their credit score.
Funny, but yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking on a large project.
Right.
You can't just have Uncle John who does it on the side.
Right. That's important too. As far as the construction projects you've been working with, what's the average turnover time for those from start to finish?
So that has definitely extended over the years because of products and COVID and being able to get some of the even subcontractors. Labor is definitely kind of an issue right now. But what may have used to be 6 months, we're at 8 to 10. I've seen things go as long as a year. So yeah, unfortunately it is a little bit longer. But I've showed clients houses for the same amount of time because we see house after house, put offer after offer, get outbidded.
Yep.
And so it may seem like a long process, but it's still, you might be working within the same timeline if you're looking at existing homes.
Right. Yeah. You're not lying there. It's incredible the low inventory that we're having right now. And a key factor right there is, we're all waiting for things to get better. Realistically, I think a lot of people were hoping for spring. I think this spring, just seasonal wise, things will get better on that variable. I don't think it's going to be significant. However, probably we're looking outwards to a year, maybe a little bit more. And I say that just because, the famous phrase I'm thinking of right now is rates tend to shoot up and then climb down. And there's a variety of reasons of why rates are what they are right now. But over the last few weeks, rates have actually gotten a little bit better. From some of the applications I've seen, some people were buying, like almost 6 months ago, people were paying for points just to lock in at a 7%, that was a tough conversation to have. You can't lean too much on the refi conversation when they're trying to buy right now.
Right.
So that was challenging, and it was a rough few months. But why are rates getting better right now? I mean, the good thing about real estate is it's always been a safe investment if done properly and you're advised correctly. It's always been a safe investment. Over the last 100 years, you have a positive ROI, and that's been averaged. So some years are better than others. Some years are worse than others, but you'll still see a positive trend. And what do people usually do in uncertain times, like what we have right now? This big old Great Recession that we're dealing with. People aren't putting their money into stocks as heavily as they once were. That risk is not as attractive when maybe when we're in more certain times. So typically when people take their money out of stocks, they put it into bonds, which is a safer investment, which is on the same market as mortgage-backed securities. So once we have more face value on bonds or securities, then there's less incentive to raise the interest rates to attract investors. So once that happens, once the face value increases, the interest rate, the yield, typically decreases as well. So for people that are, maybe they're really into stocks and they're thinking about real estate, maybe pay more attention to your 10-year treasury, because that has a direct correlation to what a fixed mortgage might look like for a rate. When that goes down, typically your rate's going to go down, because that's the price of what that mortgage-backed security is sold for.
Right.
That's really important, because banks, lenders, we don't make money by giving it out. We're just like any other business. We have to sell that mortgage too. So I think that's been a great forecast for me on staying on top of rates. Usually when and I'm assuming you maybe do the same thing with your newsletter for keeping people up to date with the market. Where are we headed? Where are we going? It's like, well, here's your new news. Without any media with its own agenda pulling it one way or the other. Here's the yield. This is what we're looking at for this week. And depending on where that trend's going, that could be your answer for next week. That could be your answer for when you decide to lock in your rate, which is important too, because it's certainly been up and down the last couple weeks. When some of your clients you have any clients right now that are actually like calling you about the rate?
No, actually, surprisingly, they're not, which I guess is good. I saw an article the other day which it said, date your rate.
Yep.
Which I thought was interesting. We go by the house and just date your rate, because like you said, it's a long-term investment. Chances are it is going to fluctuate. Like if it goes down, you then refinance.
Yep.
So don't hold out on your dream or what you might need because of the rate.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. I know a lot of people are mentioning like May to sort of see the whole inflation thing.
Yeah.
To see if that's going to play a role in if rates come down further.
Yeah. It's tough because there's pros and cons in every decision that you make in this business. I mean, one of the advantages that we have, and it's slowly going away, because when rates are coming down, typically, well, the hope anyways, is that listings will go up because sellers right now will have more of a incentive to sell. Why is that? I mean, most people right now that bought 3-4 years ago, that 2.5, 3.5 rate looks really freaking good right now.
100%.
Right? And what's happening is, and my parents are doing the same thing. You know, they want to buy their next home, but they're like, geez, my rate is so good, it's not even worth selling. I think I'll just hold on to it, buy the next place. So the trend of, you know, usually selling then buying is changing to now just holding and buying. So now we have this big rate shortage. So in May, with rates slowly getting better, maybe the incentive for listing agents, listings in general to go up will happen, but we're going to have more buyers too. Mm-hmm. So that advantage of, you know, 3 months ago, rates were a little bit rough, but I mean, even though listings were down, you could have a solid advantage if you were a solid buyer. To, you know, basically show up at a place and put an offer and maybe negotiate a little bit with, you know, maybe the seller could send some funds your way to buy down your rate. Or just in general, maybe you're dealing with less buyers because less buyers are scared of the rate. Mm-hmm. They're not well educated in the idea of refinancing. So there's pros and cons. In May, yeah, rates will be a little bit better than 3 months ago, but now you're going to be going to an open house with even more buyers. Mm-hmm. So what happens when that occurs? You know, generally you might have to overbid a little bit more than you had 2-3 months ago. Mm-hmm. So higher rate versus overbidding, your monthly payment's still going to be not that significant. Not that significant in the difference there. But the best thing that I think we can do, as we've been doing, is just finding our niches, being well diverse, well educated, in the different programs that are out there. I'm trying to educate a little bit more on how there are some programs that come with their own rate. You don't necessarily need to go off the traditional market rate. One big example of that is for first-time homebuyers is Maine State Housing Assistance. They have their own off-market rate. So every time I hear, you know, oh, I don't think I'm going to buy right now because of the rate, you know, usually I'm immediately like, well, are you a first-time home buyer? And if they say yes, then it's like, oh my gosh, like, please sit down and talk to me for 20 minutes so I can tell you about Maine State Housing. Because right now, Maine State Housing's at a 5.5 rate. Nice. And you could even choose, if you don't need grant assistance, if you have the down payment yourself, you could choose to lock in at a 5% rate. So there's definitely advantages to having these portfolio products. Maine right now is a huge advocate for landlords. And when I say that, I mean not only do you get a better rate, you also have grant assistance on top of that. So let's say you choose to go with a 5.5 rate. This is called an avenue for Maine State Housing's Advantage program. You can look all this up online, but the grant starts at $5,000, and then it actually increases from there by $3,000 per unit. So I have 2 clients right now that are closing in on April 28th, both for 4-unit properties. And if you do the math, that's $14,000 in grant assistance through Maine State Housing. So having that education on knowing, you know, you could get that type of assistance on top of getting a 5.5 rate without buying it down is really advantageous. You know, a lot of people don't realize how close they are to qualifying. So that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to do and trying to get out there, I guess, in the community for the spring market. As far as your construction business, your avenue you have with facilitating home care, is there anything else that you'd like the audience or your ideal clientele to kind of know about you?
I don't know. We covered a lot of it. I know in this market, the renovation business can also come in handy because maybe it isn't a good time for you to sell, but maybe we can make your existing home fit your needs better.
Yeah.
So I had a gentleman who was looking to build who has MS. It's looking like it might not work out for him. Things are a little higher than he was hoping. He's on a fixed income. So maybe we create a bedroom on the first floor so he has that single floor living. So, you know, like you just said, there's different options for different things. And so sometimes just talking to a professional might open up some resources that you didn't really know what was possible.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you must have a keen eye for what will pass an appraisal and what won't.
Yes.
Which is tremendous, because as much as I try to communicate with all parties, once we're under contract, at that point it's like, now we need to get together. Okay, you represent the seller, you represent the buyer. That's great, but now we need to get together and make sure the deal works.
Right.
And once the appraiser goes in there and does his inspection, if we get our subject to conditions, now those need to be met. There's no wiggle room. So what could have been a mediated issue is now being delegated by someone else, when we could have delegated it beforehand, then had the appraiser go in there, and it would have been a much smoother process for our clients. So I would say, if I were a buyer client and I heard that you had a builder background, that would be, with my education too in the mortgage world, that sticks out to me, is you have a keen eye for what's going to pass inspections before we hire someone to go in there. Or maybe this is someone the buyer's client is paying for too. They're paying for an inspector to go in there, and it really sucks when they're paying someone to tell them all kinds of things that's wrong. What a great idea to have a listing agent that's well diverse, can take care of those problems. So if you do pay for the inspection to make you feel good, at least he's going to come back and tell you, really, we have no issues. You're good.
And I've done that. I've done, like, okay, we know the decking is going to be an issue. We're going to have to rip out the boards that are rotten.
Yep.
Or they're going to flag this for rails. So let's get some railings on it.
Yep.
So yeah, we can definitely be proactive. Or even if they didn't, because they don't want us to feel, if like I'm the buyer's side, telling them what needs to be done. If it gets flagged, I still have the resources to take care of it.
Right.
Before we close.
Yeah. And that's a heck of a lot more helpful when you have those contacts in your phone already, because I'm assuming the scheduling is more preferred.
There can be a wait. So yeah, if Kelly's calling Dana, I might be able to get him over there.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, this has been great. I always like to end too on just to touch base personally with the audience, is for anyone that's maybe thinking about getting into the real estate world. Would you have any advice to give, even maybe your younger self, before getting into the industry? What was, maybe what's something that could help them get to success more quickly, or just motivate them in general?
It is definitely a slow process. It's consistency, it's relationship, and it's about the journey, not the destination. So if you think you're going to get your license and you're going to be ripping it up in 6 months, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And if it does, there might be something in question there, because it's usually it's a relationship building process.
Yeah.
So just know that it's for the long haul. You stick with it, do all the right things, and my whole thing is you treat others the way you would want to be treated. The golden rule: if you're good to people, there's no such thing as over communicating. Then you'll do well in this business.
Yeah. Yep. Knowing that you're in it for the long haul and it's what you want to be doing.
Yep.
I love it. All right, Kelly.
Well, thank you.
Of course. Yeah. I look forward to having you on again.
Thanks.